Hello, hello. It's election day. But who's not voting today? Richard Allen. Yep. What happened in court yesterday? Well, it was dramatic, but the drama wasn't in the courtroom. It was in the line. Stay tuned. Good morning, everybody, or afternoon, or evening, or whenever it is you're watching this. I could not sleep last night, so I got up this morning and I said, well, let me just, now it's like, it was like 2, I don't know. I didn't sleep. I think I slept 3 hours. So I'm up and I'm like, well, let me just look and see where I'm supposed to go vote. It was 1 block over, literally 1 block, and then up this, like right around the corner. Anyway, so I get dressed and I walked over there at 6:30 in the morning. I figure, in, out, I'm done. There was a line already, 40 people at least. But it went really quick. 30 minutes in and out. Guy flirting with me, and I stood outside and I went, did I go back and get his number? Because he didn't have a wedding ring on. And he's like, and I'm like, I started to go back, and then I thought, no. And then I started to go back, and then I went, no. Anyway, I'll never see him again. He was adorable. Oh, my age, had all his teeth. Anyway, I'm digressing. All right, let's talk about state of Indiana versus Richard Allen for the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German back on February 13th of 2017. Their bodies were discovered on Valentine's Day, northeast of the Monon High Bridge, and they have been stabbed to death. And so far this trial, I'm going to sum it up. We're going to be on a really high level here, like really high level. Reasonable doubt has been created. I do not think the state is proving their case or has proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt. There's so much reasonable doubt here. My God. And it only just takes 1 iota. And of the jurors, when they go to deliberate, their doubts don't have to be the same. They don't have to agree on a doubt. Just one person that has a reasonable doubt. It could be everybody with a reasonable doubt. Yeah, and it's got to be unanimous. So we could have a hung jury here or a not guilty. And I'm not going to say not guilty. I'm just going to say the state hasn't proven the case beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay, let's go there. So yesterday, when the podcasters got there to try to get one of them 24 seats, they've had volunteer line sitters. Well, these poor line sitters were sitting in the pouring rain. I mean, bless their hearts. My God. That's amazing that they're doing that for these people. Anyway, first person on the stand, forensic neuropsychologist. Oh, there's more drama on the line later. Okay, that wasn't all of it. All right. Forensic neuropsychologist, Dr. Westcott. Now, this is somebody that the defense hired, and she reviewed lots of material. Oh, my God. At $450 an hour. Now, you're going to hear that and go, what? That's the going rate. Seriously. Even back when I practiced, you didn't blink an eye. $450 an hour, okay, you're hired. But this woman has put probably hundreds of hours into this case. She had to review all the videos, all the camcorder footage where they follow them around. She reviewed all the medical records, all the police reports, what was available in interviews. She read all of the notes of the other psychologists with, everything that's been done in this case. She looked at, and she conducted neuropsychology testing of Richard Allen. And she came to some conclusions. So just a little bit about her background. She does competency evaluations. She has her own private practice as well. Yeah, she looked at the defendant's history, did the neuropsych eval, and I wish I could read my own writing. At 2:00 in the morning, it looks like Chinese. Um, and she's going to go into the breadth of his decline here. So she starts out by saying, he had a very extensive mental health history, dating back to when he was a child. His father left him when he was a small child. And of course, objection. I don't know what the objection was, just let the woman do her job. Probably because the information, like that kind of information, that's not in any of these records. That's not in any, that would have had to come right from the defendant's mouth. And that's hearsay. And the judge sustained that objection. But I mean, you can use, an expert has pretty wide latitude about what they use to conduct their evaluation and reach their conclusions. Anyway. This is a guy who likes to overthink things. They had another word for it, one that I had never heard. Did I write it down? Because I learned a new word. Persevations. Never heard the word persevations. And apparently that's where you like to basically overthink things. And so some of his were, that something was going to happen to his family, that people were looking at him and thinking bad about him. Now, this is not schizophrenia. We're not there yet. These are just persevations. Thoughts that he's failing his family, external pressures causing him to crawl up in a ball sometimes. And so his anxiety was really, really, up there. And I can relate. I have anxiety. I know what that feels like. And for some, I probably persevere over preservation. I probably do that a lot of things. I overthink everything anyway. And my sister will say, "Why are you so obsessed with that?" I'm like, I don't know. Anyway. All right. So as an adult, fear of failing at work, not performing well, even though, and sometimes these fears can be irrational. He's had he did well in the military. He's had 3 different jobs, long-term promotions. He's got a home. It's paid off. He was doing well. He's doing okay. But his wife plays a key role in putting and keeping him together, making him feel good about himself. It sounds like they've been married a good long time. I think when he went off to the military when he was 18, and he lived at home till then. Then when he came back, he met her, and then they got married, Kathy. So she said he suffers from dependent personality disorder. He really needs other people to feel whole, to not feel alone, to not feel worthless. He relies extensively on his wife, and to a lesser extent his mom, Janice, to give him comfort and tell him, "You're a good boy." Yes. So she came to 6 main conclusions following her review. First, long history of mental health. She described him as a fragile egg, one that's easily cracked. And, whose father abandoned him in early childhood. She said, number 2, 2 and 3 both have to do with feigning. Feigning is that you're like, the answers to all these tests, and you're going to nail this, and people are going to think you're psychotic. And she said, nah, he was not feigning. They have developed these tests that are hundreds and hundreds of questions. And it's to identify people that are lying, malingering, feigning, exaggerating their symptoms. And no, she felt that she had ruled that out. She thought he had a significant slowing of his cognitive abilities during his incarceration, down to about the 5 or 6% range. And, but I didn't understand the range. Like, are you saying like on a, like out of 100 people, he would be at the lower end? I guess that's what she's saying cognitively. Anyway, also frontal lobe control of executive function. That's where you problem solve. He would have been in the 2 to 4% range. So he had deteriorated significantly. Of course, we don't know where he started out. So with respect to the preservations, they said one of them was his confessing that he was fixated on that, overthinking it. So the first 4 months he was in there, he suffered from anxiety and depression, and that deteriorated into wanting to hurt himself, and then eventually into hallucinations, focusing on beliefs that aren't true, and then eventually this full out psychosis. He decompensated both physically and mentally. If you saw pictures of him from before versus after, he lost a significant amount of weight. So she said the totality of the circumstances were consistent with a major depressive disorder with psychosis. And it's based on a severe level of stress that can lead to psychotic disorder. So this major mental depression plus this severe level of stress that we know he went through equals psychosis. And she talked about the ideology of this. Where's all this coming from? Because I guess somebody at a higher level of brain function could have withstood all this, or anyway. So stress, if you have an increase in stress in your life, it's going to cause you to deteriorate. Your mental health is going to deteriorate. Some of the stressors on him were this solitariness, the isolation. She said you can actually change your brain chemistry. Those things will actually change your brain chemistry. Solitude and confinement. And bring on psychotic symptoms. So then she was going to analyze his handwriting. And the prosecution was like, whoa. She's not a handwriting analyst. There's no foundation for her testifying about handwriting. She wanted to compare a letter that he wrote the judge in November when he was first put in jail about, not having been assigned counsel yet and blah, 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 to a letter, the confession letter that he wrote to the warden during his psychosis. So the judge asked her, what's the basis for your knowledge of handwriting analysis? She goes, well, as a neuropsychologist, it's actually something we learn in medical school. Yes, we have a course on that. And it's something I do all the time. You can see intense stress that will actually change your handwriting. So the judge is like, okay, it's coming in. What? You overruled an objection? Yes. So she looked at those samples and she felt like his thoughts were very disorganized and his grammar and punctuation were off between the letters. Where you saw this level of grammar and punctuation that were okay in the initial letter, a few months in, you're seeing disorganized thoughts, and grammar and punctuation differences. Very different handwriting, she said. And the signature was very different. So, yeah. And it did reveal his fragmented thoughts. So she talked about the testing some more. She said, no, absolutely not malingering. He's a very passive person. He likes to avoid confrontation. Everything tested consistent with his state of psychosis. He said he has very little emotional reserve. Then early December through March, he was less emotional, less expressive, less reactive. His thinking started to slow down, and then it escalated to more blatant symptoms. So let me just backtrack for a second. This is everything that happened yesterday. I told you I didn't finish Saturday, so let me just talk about Saturday and why we're here to this point in the testimony. So on Saturday, they brought back the defense's legal intern. By then, he had condensed all that video, and they sat and showed that video to the jury, but not to the public. The defense did not want it shown to the public because of the sensitive nature of the footage. You know, him being naked, eating his feces, drinking out of the toilet. You know, first of all, nobody wants to see that. Kathy was not in the courtroom, his wife. She chose not to be there. I'm not sure she knew that she wouldn't have been able to see anything anyway, but those videos were played to the jury. Some they didn't get to all of them, but that's what they did for their half day on Saturday. And what they did was they turned the screen towards the jury, towards the front of the courtroom, so the judge could see it, the jury could see it, and the attorneys had to get, you couldn't even see it at the attorney tables. They had to get up and walk around to the sides to be able to see what was on screen. So now let's going back to that's the when I talked about more blatant symptoms that popped into my head, that's what they did on Saturday, and they're going to get back to that after this witness. So then she said, after June or July, now we're talking 2023, he went into prison in November of 2022. So after June or July, which would have been after the acute psychosis, she said his behaviors were not as blatant, and she did see some improvement in him. As far as where he fell on a scale, or she said she said he fell within the definition of serious mental illness. Sorry, I can't read my writing. I really, like, if when you're up in the middle of the night, you're like, what did I write? Yes, I'm in my second notebook for this one, you guys. So she talked about Dr. Walla. She said, okay, Dr. Walla writes the confession in her notes like it's a story, like there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And this is the particular day that the confession got a little detailed. You know, I lied in wait. I followed the girls. We went down the hill. I saw a van. When Dr. Walla wrote that in her notes, because we don't videotape that, she wrote it as a story. But when this neuropsychologist actually started reading all the suicide watchers' notes, you know, the inmates that were keeping notes, and the later on the corrections officers, she went over all those notes, and together with Dr. Wallace's notes, and she said this confession actually came out much more fragmented than the way it's written in Dr. Wallace's notes, which I thought was a really interesting point. Like there would be fragments here, fragments in someone else's note. It didn't come out as a story with a beginning, middle, and end the way Dr. Walla presented it, which would be, you know, he was talking about it out of context. He wasn't being logical nor organized, like she said. It was very fragmented, this whole confession. So she says, when you're put into, this is her conclusion, when you're put into a stressful situation away from your family, not just the solitary, but you've got other inmates yelling at him, telling him to kill himself, calling him a baby killer. He's put into sensory deprivation, the lights being on at all times, not sleeping most days. She said some days he'd go sleep 1 hour over 3 days. Losing substantive amounts of weight, your brain's going to change. It can result from rapid weight loss as well as not knowing night from day. No, this is her testimony. He had some brain changes. Yes. So after she takes the stand, then they put on the young intern guy again. Show more video. And they finish up the video. Still nobody can see it. And on cross-examination by the prosecution, he was asked, were you given discretion about what you were showing in that video? And he says, yeah, I decided what went into the video that was shown to the jury. Did you go through that video and just pick the worst of it? And he says, yeah, but you didn't show any other video either. So, because, I mean, he's right. Prosecution could have put on video that shows the opposite of what he was showing. And he also mentioned, he goes, well, actually, you know, I was going to show much more video, but you objected. And I had to go condense it. Touche. I loved it. He's going to make a great lawyer. Good luck, honey. Okay, so then let me see the time. Okay. Richard Allen's sister, Jamie Jones, took the stand because in part of the fragmented confession, he had said he sexually molested his sister when she was young, and she said no. We don't have the same father. We lived together. He was 5 years older than me. It never happened. It didn't happen. Never touched me. Would you lie for your brother? No, I would not lie for my brother. Thank you. Have a nice day. Next witness, Brittany Capanta, which is Richard Allen's adult daughter. Basically the same testimony. Dad ever touch you, abuse you? No, no, no. Would you lie for him? No, no, I would not. Okay. Then there was a jury question that asked did she ever go to the Monon High Bridge with her dad? And she said, oh yeah, we would go. And she goes, I was terrified of that bridge. She goes, I went across it maybe once or twice, but I'm terrified of that bridge. So then we had a woman named Shelby Hicks. She had been on the High Bridge with her boyfriend that day. She says around 2:30. I don't think she was too sure of the times, and the police probably weren't too interested in her cell phone to figure out. Like timeline, I don't know that they knew the definition of making a timeline. Not the prosecution, but the investigating officers. I don't think they realized, hey, maybe we need a timeline with all these witnesses. Anyway, parked at the mirror entrance. At some point during their walk, they run into a couple of friends, some girls they went to high school with. They saw an older gentleman with a camera and two young girls. Might have seen Abby and Libby. She said they went out as far as the first platform on the Mona High Bridge. Saw her friends as they were walking towards the bridge. And I think she thinks that where did they see the girls? As they were entering the bridge, I think. Are they entering? I don't remember where she said they saw the girls. I don't know if she remembers where she saw the girls. Anyway. So she notified the police, told them everything, and then never heard from them again. They didn't look at her phone for, like location data, anything like that. Now, this is one of these things that has not come into this trial, geofencing. Now, geofencing is where you look at a phone, and they did this in the Alex Murdaugh case, and they did it in what other case? Oh, the Chad Daybell case, geofencing, where they can look at a phone and they can tell you where that phone has been. They can't tell you where the person is, but they can tell you where the phone's been. They didn't do that with any of this stuff. No. Where's the geofencing on Liberty German's phone? I think maybe it became inoperable before they could get that. But anyway, the judge is not allowing any of that into this trial. So that's why we're not hearing a lot about other suspects. That's why we're not hearing about a lot of location data. So we can fix these times. Who heard what? Anyway, she didn't hear any screaming. Nothing like that during that time frame. Didn't see anybody that met Richard Allen's description. So then they put former sheriff Deputy Mullen back on the stand. And it's all about this log thing again. But first they're talking about cars. He said the only 2016 Ford Focus on that surveillance but Hoosier Harvest video was Richard Allen's hatchback Ford Focus. And so he was asked, did you look, would you agree 2011 to 2017, similar models? Yes. Did you check on that? Did you create a list? He said he had a list of cars that he just kept out that do appear on the video that look similar to this hatchback that he saw. So then they talk about this, whether there's a log of missing evidence. You said it was there. Now you say you found it. So initially he said he created a log. Initially said that there was no log created of the missing evidence. And then after he's asked about it, early on in his depot, later on he finds it. Oh, it's in a file cabinet. Yeah, interesting. So then he was asked, did you see anything about a van on social media? And the reason he's asking that is because Dr. Walla, the person doing the psychology treatment of Richard Allen, is a social media buff. She was following this case, investigating this case, and there was a lot of stuff on social media at this time about a van. And he says, no, I don't look at social media. And then he said, well, maybe someone else did, Mr. Hallman, And then he was asked, well, would it surprise you that there were dozens of references to vans on social media? So that question was objected to as speculation. I don't know if I agree with that. He's just asking him, would you be surprised if that was true? And so, anyway, he sustained. He didn't have to answer it. And a juror asked, why was anyone discussing the van prior to Richard Allen's confession? Great question, because there's other vans in this. I'd like to know that too, this whole time frame beforehand. Why on social media is everybody talking about vans? Anyway. So then he starts asking him about some of the social media posts, where there was a cargo van in the area about a half hour outside of Delphi the next day, where the guys, the windows are all dark and, or it had no windows, kind of a 50s, 60s-ish looking man giving out candy. Hey, little girl, want some candy? This was on social media. Anyway. What about a white van driven by a guy named Aaron? And so all of these were objected to, and we never sustained, and we never got an answer to that. But these are referenced. So someone on social media is talking about vans before Richard Allen says the word van. So here's the thought here, that perhaps Dr. Walla mentioned to Richard Allen this, what was on social media about this van. She might have planted that idea in his brain, who's not firing on all cylinders. Anyway. Okay. Then Brad Weber takes a stand again. Brad Weber is the guy that lives down the hill. And we're talking about his van. And I got some interesting details here. I think if I finally figured out the truth here about this van. So he said, you said you went straight home. Yes. what you so what you told Goatee and Pool was that you didn't go straight home. Do you not remember what you told them that day, February 18th, just a few days after the murders? And he's like, I don't even know who those people are. Well, that's because it's Indiana State Police guy and the FBI guy. And the FBI guy put in his statement that Richard Allen, or that he went to service his ATM that day. He didn't go straight home in his van. So he refreshed his recollection with the FBI report. He says, read this. Do you remember saying this? And he says, I don't remember that. I don't remember saying that. So here's the interesting thing. Now follow this. He admits that the weekend before the murders, the murders are on a Monday. The weekend before the murders, he's out of town 3 whole days, gets home Sunday afternoon. How many ATMs did you have? And he said, oh, I don't, it depends on when you're asking. Sometimes I have as little as 15, as many as 30. And he goes, well, would it refresh your recollection to look at your statement that you gave to the FBI? And he was refreshed. And in 2017, he had 35 ATMs. And the way the ATMs needed to be serviced when they ran out of money. You had to put some more money in them. And for every withdrawal of cash, the bank would pay this guy a service fee, basically, for maintaining the ATM. And then if the receipt, the paper for the receipt would run out, he'd have to replace that. And he may have had some coin machines in there as well, where he had to put coin in the machines. But, he says, basically, he puts money in them on an as needed basis. He has a computer program that tells him which ones are getting low or need cash. But he has to order that cash ahead of time, like 5 days ahead of time. So, the inferences here are that, he probably put in a cash order with the bank prior to going out of town for 3 days. Now, these ATMs are located in convenience stores, bars, restaurants, all these places that are very, very busy on weekends. So if he ordered this cash the day before he leaves, day or two before he leaves, get that busy weekend, you're probably going to need to put money in some of those ATM machines on that Monday, on that Monday, the day the girls were kidnapped and murdered. And basically, at one point, he says, I do something with those ATMs every day. But on that day, he usually leaves work around 2. He usually clocks out. His shift ends at 2:30. Why'd you leave at 2:02? That's when, because he works for Subaru. He says, that's when they told me to leave that day, 2:02. You didn't ask to leave early so you could go check your ATMs? No, I don't remember checking the ATMs that day. But then he says he has got 2 vehicles. He's got a Subaru and he's got the van. And he says, I don't know if this was a slip up, but he says he only uses that van to tow his trailer. And he only uses the Subaru to service the ATMs. Think about that. See, he was driving the Subaru that day. I'm guaranteeing you. And he did go service those ATMs in his Subaru. I don't think that van ever left his property. So when he did get home that day, whenever it was he got home, he says 2:30-ish. He was also asked by a juror, what's your clocking out process? Well, apparently you just go through a turnstile and it clocks you out if you have your badge on. So how do you know it was at 2:02? Like, you're not at a clock with a card and a thing that says 2:02. Like, how do anyway, that's just my thought that went through my head. So when he gets home, he took a nap. This is around 2:30, so he's taking a nap. 5 to about 5 when he's woken up by the police that, can we search your property? We have a couple missing girls. Can we search your property? Sure. They didn't search his outbuildings. He had 3 outbuildings, and he was asked, did you give them permission? He goes, they didn't ask. So those outbuildings were not searched that night. They were at a later time, but not this night. No. Then when the officer leaves, he goes back to sleep. Goes back to take another nap till he's woken up at 8 o'clock that night. Why are you so tired, Mr. Weber? I think we got more evidence against Mr. Weber than we have against Richard Allen. Anyway, that's the show for today, guys. I hope you enjoy the content. Don't forget, you can go back and watch any of the videos that you missed. They're playlisted under Crafting and Crime Daily. Hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. I know you guys are subscribed. I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day, everybody. I'm going to get my sister out of the hospital. I'm going to break her out. Bye.